Join us in the Bear Den, a real-life, real-love podcast celebrating the joys and challenges of parenting, family dynamics, and unconditional love.
Welcome to another episode of the Bear Den podcast. Today, my beautiful guest is coming onto the show to give us some insight with regards to self-improvement, self-healing, and she's also a healer, and she's going to be talking about parenting as being a healer. So I'd love to introduce the beautiful Miss Karissa Sherwood. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It really is an honor.
So welcome. Sorry it's taken this long. We had Josh on very early on. We had to get those ones out of the way first, build the platform, and now we get the real guests on.
Totally.
Okay, now we get the real ones on. Friends are out the way.
Yep.
Important ones are here.
Great.
So I talked in the introduction about self-healing, and you have gone on a beautiful journey, a spiritual journey, an energy journey of self-healing. I want to go back to who Karissa was before the Karissa that I know and we all know today. So who were you prior to the self-healing journey that you're on now?
Well, when you sent me the questions the other day and I was sitting on that, I sent them to my son, Crew, who's 18 years old.
Yeah.
So I said, what would you speak to this? What would you say? How would you describe me then and now? And what are your thoughts on the whole thing? And this is one thing that he said. Before your healing, you were a scared mother trying to do her best. Your parenting has changed from parenting out of fear to coaching out of love. So I would say I was highly reactive.
Okay.
All the time.
To everything?
To everything. I felt like I was wound really tight. Like my nerves were just always on edge all the time, like this permanent state of electrocution. Wow. And in everything that I've learned about healing and the nervous system and all that, I was so dysregulated. And I didn't know or understand how much experiences that we've had from when we were younger or throughout our lives are held inside our body. And so it was just my body's response to these really hard things that I had experienced that I didn't know what to do with.
Did this come from childhood trauma or trauma just as an adult life?
Yeah, childhood trauma for sure.
Yeah.
And I was a very sensitive, very emotional being. So everything just cut me on a very, very deep level. So I just feel like I had all these slices on my heart that I carried for years. And I carried all of that into my parenting, into all of my relationships. I was essentially just bleeding on everyone that never cut me in the first place.
Were there things that happened back then that you look back now and think, oh my God, like that wouldn't have happened, or I wouldn't have lost that person or that opportunity if I'd have been healed? Like, are there any really big kind of life-changing things that you're like, I didn't do that because I wasn't in a good space to do it, and I wish I could have done it now?
It's hard to say that because I really do feel at my core now that everything happens as it should, and everything happens for us. And so even the really hard things that I experienced, I have gratitude for because it shaped me into the person that I am.
I love that. That's such I love the fact that you said that. That's such an important thing that I know it can be ridiculed, and I know there's people out there that ridicule this, but it's something that I've picked up on in the last year. And Melissa Van Muser does this so beautifully. It's like, look for the gift in everything.
Yeah.
Like when shit hits the fan, when things go wrong, where's the gift? And honestly, prior to the last 18 months, I'm like, when shit hits the fan, there's not a gift. It's a shit show, right? You got to fix it. Somebody leaving you, somebody cheating on you. There's no gifts in that, right? But there actually is when you scratch away and look deeper and deeper and like, well, what's the gift in it? Okay, well, this person has left me. Well, they probably weren't good enough for me. So what's the gift? I get to be me again. Like there's always a gift in things.
I believe that.
But you really have to dig and look to find it. And some people just don't want to dig.
Definitely. And it's definitely a changing of the lens. It's the way you see the world.
Yeah.
And moving from this space of victimhood and everything is happening to me to like, I can see how even in this hard thing, there's beauty in it, or there's something for me here.
Yeah. Were there things, as you obviously said you had some trauma as a child that kind of left those scars on your heart? Were there things that as an adult were just compounding those scars and making them wider and wider and wider?
Yes. I feel like becoming a mother just opened up this whole box for me of overwhelm. I don't really remember being super overwhelmed in my life, but I was like one person, a teenager, like you're responsible for yourself. You're really not responsible for anybody else. And now I'm like a wife and a mother. And even though it's a small household, I'm running a household. Yeah. I'm a kid. I'm a baby having a baby.
How old are we?
I was 18 when Josh and I got married. That's little.
With Dre, right?
That's so little. Yeah. And then I was 21 when I had Dre, but I just didn't hardly even know up from down.
Yeah.
And now I'm like responsible for like this human. I don't know how to do
now we
this.
have 4 humans, which I grew.
So I just felt even though all I ever wanted to do was be a mother, when I became a mother, I was like, I don't know how to do this.
Did you have fear about becoming a parent? Did you have fear about having kids, thinking,
I didn't.
I don't know how to do this?
I didn't until it was like right in front of me. I was like, oh, shit. I don't know what to do.
What do I do now? How do I put it back?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And they're just these perfect little humans and you want to do right by them. And it was very overwhelming. And with each child, my overwhelm just escalated and magnified. And I was just spinning my wheels all of the time trying to do all of the things.
So what did a day look like for you when you've got, 4 children? And they all vary in years. You've got Dre, that's 20, Crew, that's 18, Ma, that's 14 or 15, and then President's 11.
Yeah.
What did a day look like for Karissa when you wake up, you've got 4 children, you are not healed? Where do you go mentally and physically? Like, what does it look like for you?
I was so busy.
Yeah.
And busy is also a coping skill. It's a way of keeping us safe. Mm-hmm. At that time, I was not ready to look at any of those wounds. I didn't know how. I didn't have the awareness to do that. I couldn't, like when I would feel these really big feelings come up, I didn't know what to do with that. So I would make myself busy. And it worked for a very, very long time because I was able to forget about it for a second and hurry and go clean this or take this kid here or, take Marley to therapy or whatever. But when those things did bubble up, it was so painful. I just didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know why I felt the way I was. Like, why was I so hurt? Why was I grieving so deeply? Why was I so sad? Why was I so insecure? I would also say, like an insecure person makes for an insecure parent. Mm. So I just made everything about me.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there times where would you classify it as a depression? What would you classify it as? The feeling, the emotion? Because it doesn't sound like it's a depression.
It wasn't.
It's almost like an overwhelming.
I experienced that later, but it was just this overwhelm and this need to control, this hyper need to control and to have everything in order. Yeah. And that was an external manifestation of actually what was happening internally with me. Yeah. I was in such chaos inside. So outside, it was like, I can't control what's happening in here. I'm going to control everything around me. I'm going to control exactly how my house looks like. Like with 4 kids, every room was spotless, every drawer, we had bins and labels, and my kids were just polished from head to toe. And I needed to control all the things. I needed to choose what they were wearing. Like Dre and I would go head to head in the freaking kindergarten because I was choosing his clothes. And he was like, I don't want to wear that. I want to wear basketball shorts. And I'm like, no, that's sloppy. Yeah. Like, who cares? He's 6, 5. But I just had to have it like that for me to kind of feel like I was okay. Yeah, like when I could scan and look at my house and see everything in order and the children, and I'm like, okay, see, I'm okay.
So what did it look like when it wasn't in order?
I really had to have it that way, like daily. It was like really non-negotiable.
But there's only so much you can control. Like if you're out with one of the kids and the boys come home and kick their shoes off and make food and leave stuff out, and you come home, you're like, oh, this isn't
definitely. So I would just flip a lid.
Yeah.
I would just lose my mind.
In front of the family, or would you take yourself away and do it privately?
No, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that because when you are so reactive, you don't have this little space of a conscious choice.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I have just mopped the floor and hand dried it. Who freaking hand dries it?
You used to hand dry your floor?
Yes, I hand dried it, and then the kids spill water in the kitchen, and I lose my mind because then I'm like, I have to go redo that. It's water. They're children, you know? But like, it was just so beyond my control. Like my reactions were so involuntary.
Yeah.
So then I would cry and go in my room and like lock the door.
Wow.
And just beat myself up because I loved these people so much. And I had so much love and empathy and kindness and softness and nurturing. And then in 1 minute, I'm like a Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
So then I would just go in my room, maybe beat myself up. Like, what's the matter with me? Why am I doing this? Like, this isn't how I feel. This isn't in my heart. Like, what is this? And so it was this constant guilt and shame cycle.
Yeah.
So because I did this thing, guilt is I did, therefore I am. And that's the shame.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just constantly. So I truly felt in my core like I was the worst mother on the planet. Now, granted, my kids had shelter and clothing and food. I made home-cooked meals, all the things. I didn't beat them, but I felt like I was the worst mother in the world.
Wow. That's such a remarkable thing to hear you say and try, and even for someone who knows you and knows who you are and the energy you bring now, trying to even imagine you being that person is unfathomable. Because I've only ever known you with love and light and energy and compassion and all the beautiful things that you've just shared. Trying to even picture Karissa of somebody who's, barking at the kids and biting their head off and, yelling and going off into, I'm like, I can't even see that. It doesn't even feel like that's you.
And that is actually why it's so beautiful, is because it's like, if I can do this and change and become this completely different person, then anybody can.
Yeah.
And that is why I'm so passionate on doing what I do and helping others really connect to this truest part of themselves. Because I wish everybody could know me then and now.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, something's working here,
Whatever she's doing, we should all be doing.
It works.
Now, did you in these times where you're sitting there questioning yourself, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling this? Did you know where, like, was there an underlying thread of, I think this is coming from X, Y, and Z?
No.
Or was it just
I would just constantly ask myself, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? Why do I have to have things this way?
Yeah. Did Josh know? And not like because Josh is a very, very attentive person, whether, if you know Josh Sherwood or not, he sees everything. He often doesn't say a lot, but he sees a lot.
No, he knew that my growing up life was hard. Okay. And he knew like the relationships in my family, especially like between me and my mom, were icy. And for a female, that's really the most important relationship she can have in her life that affects her so deeply. So I'm sure he's just like, well, it's got to be from that or whatever. But he was also trying to build a business and he was grinding. So we just kind of had this understanding without ever really like agreeing on terms, but we were modeling what his parents did. And it looked like that worked. So we thought like, okay, let's just model that. So I was home with the kids, did all the kid things. He was building this business and he would just say like, I'll find a way to pay for it. I'll figure that out.
I'll figure that out.
So I think he was just so busy. And he didn't see what I saw in myself as far as, because he would always say, Chris, like you're overreacting, like you're a great mom, but it doesn't matter what someone can say to you. If you don't see yourself through that lens, it's just like, stop. What are you don't even know. You're not even paying attention.
No, I 100% understand that feeling.
Yeah.
Did Josh see a change in you going from the Karissa that he met and married, which it sounds like prior to the boys was very, kind of almost how you are now. There wasn't the turmoil that you had. You had the kids and all of a sudden you've lost control. You've lost your center point, your anchor. And now you're kind of, flailing a little bit. Did Josh see this and like, where's this come from?
I think he just figured
that
this was part of life and having new responsibilities, being outnumbered in those responsibilities. So I don't really think he dwelled on it or thought like, what's happening here, you know?
Well, as you said too, and in his podcast, we talk about this, he started the business from scratch with like $160 something.
Yeah.
And he told the story so beautifully. He's like, I went to Home Depot and I bought like a rake and a shovel and a broom and put it on
And I was like,
$167 on a credit card, and you were losing your mind. It's like, how are we going to pay for this?
Yeah.
And now look at the pair of you.
Yeah.
You know, you have this amazing home in Arizona. You've got this thriving business. You know, the pools and the backyards and the homes that he creates are just sensational. And your home and the practice that you do with the breath work and the yoga and all of the energy stuff that you do is amazing. Like, you've really just found this symbiotic, beautiful path, and you blend into each other's lives so beautifully. Like, you have the Immersia events at your home in Phoenix, where, you know, 50 to 100 people come to your backyard, and Josh is there, you know, fluffing the pillows.
Totally. Sound checks, tech support.
Checking, putting the waterfall on, and, you know, he's leaf blowing the grass, making it all perfect. But he's a proper little Susie homemaker. He really is. But it's beautiful that you've come from that $167 on a credit card to where you are now, plus all of the trials and tribulations in between.
Yeah.
What was it for you that you've got the kids, you're having these thoughts, these feelings? What was it when you just sat down and went, all right, enough is enough? What is wrong? And I don't want to say there's anything wrong with you, but what is wrong in my life that I need to fix?
Yeah.
And how did you pinpoint it and go, and I know that I need to fix it by doing X, which ultimately was energy work and breath work and self-healing. So how did that come about? Because there's probably a lot of people out there like you, live with anxiety, live in a world of being overwhelmed. In fact, Andrea and I heard a beautiful statement not that long ago about overwhelmed. Overwhelmed just equals underprepared. When you think about it, you're like, well, I'm overwhelmed with this task at work. Well, why is it overwhelming you? Well, I don't have the materials, I don't have the time. So you're not overwhelmed, you're just underprepared. And when Andrea and I both heard that, I was like, oh, that's a goodie.
Yeah.
So what was it that changed? What was that one moment that was like, I have to fix this?
Well, when I had 2 little boys, so my boys were 2 and 8 months, I got stomach cancer. So I had to have chemo, surgery, radiation, all the things.
Yeah.
So they had to essentially cut the part of the stomach where the cancer was and resection that stomach to my intestines. So there's this new juncture there. So then fast forward, how long was it even? 2003? I don't know, 11 years, something like that. And then I have 4 kids now. Like, I had the girls after that. And I just started having a lot of like stomach problems, and I ended up having to have an emergency surgery because I had a nearly perforated bowel. And so that juncture where they had formed that new attachment had just been over time like unraveling and just knotting on itself, so nothing could get through. So I had to have this major surgery where they just sliced me down the middle of my stomach.
Wow.
So I have one scar that's like a rainbow from like left to right, and then a slice right down the middle. And I wasn't prepared. So that cued overwhelm because I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't know I was going to be having that. I have these 4 children and nothing is in place at all. And
when you say in place, as in
like, okay, who's going to watch the kids? Like, how are we going to do meals? Like, who's going to take this kid to practice? It was like, we had done all these tests to try to figure out what it was. And then finally the surgeon's like, we just need to go in there and see. This is what I think it is. This is what we need to see. So he told me it would be 3 months until I was completely better and recovered. He said I would only get 1% better every day, and he was totally right. So after those like 3 months, I was getting better. Like, physically I was healing, you know, the surgery, the scar was mending. But really it was like when you slice a teddy bear and all the stuffing just pops you know, that's what happened to me, like energetically, like all of these wounds that I had never looked at because I didn't know how, just completely came out. So I was feeling all of these feelings that were very foreign to me that I didn't let myself feel because they were just very big. And I was experiencing like so much brain fog, and I was in a depression, and I cared very, very much at that time about how the world saw me. So I would not let anybody know how hard it was. So like we would go to church every Sunday still, and I would still sit in the same row, and I would still paint my face on and be there. And nobody really knew how hard it was, but I would get the kids up and off to school, and then I would crawl in my bed and just be in my bed all day long. And it felt like I was the only one that I knew experiencing something like this. And so I didn't feel like anybody could relate. I didn't know who to go to or who to talk to. And I would mention things to Josh, but Josh, again, I don't think he was worried. And I think he didn't really know how bad it was. I don't think I let him in to like the deepest, darkest thoughts or feelings that I was having. So, I mean, he just always thinks everything's going to be okay. And that's beautiful and that's great. But I don't think he was too worried.
Yeah.
Or as worried as I was.
Did you have anyone that you could lean into? Or was this
not really.
Was this a journey for one? And
yeah. Like I would kind of let things out here and there to trusted people. But again, I don't think they really knew.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I sugarcoated it as well.
So it sounds like it was a period, although you've got 4 beautiful children and a loving husband who absolutely dotes and adores you, but also very lonely.
So lonely.
Yeah.
So lonely. And it just lasted and lasted and lasted. And so experiencing something like that for so long, and you don't see any light at the end of the tunnel, you don't have any answers, you don't know who to talk to or where to go or whatever. It's very depressing. And many times I wanted to just give up, not really even knowing what that meant exactly. But there was many times where I wanted to just can I just be in another realm, because this is so unbearable what I am experiencing. But then I would always be like, but why am I feeling this way? Like I have a beautiful home and I have a beautiful family and my kids, like I shouldn't be feeling this way. So then that would be guilt, shame cycle all over again, Yeah. So after being in that for a very long time, I remember just laying in my bed one day, just like sobbing in my bed. And I prayed to God, the God that I knew. And I just said, I will not accept that this is going to be my forever. This is not my forever. Like, this is not how it's going to end for me. So you have to show me the things that will help me heal. You have to show me how to get out of this. And in a matter of 2 weeks, I was led to an emotional release therapist, something I had never heard of before, and a naturopathic doctor and yoga.
Wow.
So, and I tried all those things because I was desperate. I was desperate. I was going to try anything that claimed to help me. I had nothing to lose. I was at the bottom.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What did it feel like going to those events? Did you pin a lot of hope on those events? Or was it a case of, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, c'est la vie, I'm still in this shit show?
Yeah, it was more of that one. But it was just like, well, shit, let's just
what
try
am I
it.
going to lose, right?
Yeah, nothing to lose.
Okay, I'll do a downward dog for 45 minutes and everything's fixed.
Exactly.
Shit, I'll do that for the rest of my life.
So when I went to this emotional release therapist, so it's similar to EMDR. I'm sure you have heard that. It's called Rapid Eye. And I was actually going with a family member. And she had said, to me, it seemed like she was just a mess and her life was a mess. And on the external, my life looked very put together. I was always put together, but I didn't really feel that way on the inside. So I was like, oh, well, you definitely need therapy, and therapy was had such a negative connotation.
Yeah.
And it was always something that seemed very
it's
weak.
So stigmatized.
So much.
It's so
and
stigmatized.
Especially, I think, in the faith of origin that I came from and my family, I didn't know anybody that was going to therapy. Mm-hmm. So that means something's wrong with you, or that you can't handle hard on your own.
And in your faith, obviously LDS, at that time, was going to therapy something that the LDS church acknowledged or recognized or realized that people did? Or was it a case of, and this is actually asking for a point of me, but is it a case of, don't use therapy, just come and pray to God?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
I do believe that has changed now, or is changing, or is shifting. But at the time, you hear talks and sermons and all the things that say, we'll just pray it away. And that was the other thing too, was like, okay, I've been doing all of the things that I have been instructed to do. And I was such a rule follower. I didn't break any of the rules. I did all of the things. all of the things. And so it was like, I'm doing all of the effing things.
Yeah.
Why is this not working? So then that kind of showed me like this like chink in the armor, so to speak, because it's like A is not equaling B.
Yeah.
So we're going to go try something else.
So then did that in turn start to question your faith?
It was.
Of
It
like,
was
I'm in this very dark
much.
place. I'm doing all the praying that you're asking for, and I'm not getting anything in return. So A, this doesn't work. And B,
Yeah.
this holy
That
thing that
was
you've been
the
teaching.
start
Yeah.
of the unraveling.
It's got to ask a lot of. So not only are you dealing with depression and
Yes.
overwhelming, now you're also dealing with your faith. And
Yes.
holy cow.
It was a lot.
There was a lot going on. That ball of string was getting just yanked. Holy cow. So you went through this emotional release therapy. Tell me about that. Do you just go in and scream? And like, what is...
when I was in the appointment with this family member of mine, and as the woman is explaining the process and what she does and how it works, and it's a process of releasing trapped emotions. So pulling up emotions that we weren't able to experience or feel or move through at the time of the traumatic thing. And so she's talking about this, and I am crying in my family member's appointment. It's not even for me. So then the, woman turns to me and she said, I have a cancellation after this. Do you want to stay and do it for yourself? And I was like, yes, I do. I don't think I could have voluntarily gone myself.
Gotcha.
Like it just kind of had to happen that way because I didn't even know that I needed it necessarily, Yeah. But I remember just after one appointment feeling so light, like just a weight lifted. And I had cried and just moved through some of these big emotions. And I love the process of like emotional release because it isn't like, let's go back and relive this memory and tell me from A to B and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, okay, you felt very abandoned at this age. Let's feel that feeling of abandonment and then let's move it.
Let it go.
So it's so fast. You can do such deep work at a very fast pace. So I was a believer. I was completely convinced, sold after one appointment.
And this is the first time you'd done anything like this?
Anything like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, this 100% works. I feel so different.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's the start of your spiritual path.
Totally. Yeah.
You've done this emotional release therapy.
Yeah.
Which has obviously worked for the first time ever.
Yes.
What practices did you put into place for yourself that when you were home and you start to feel the overwhelming come up and that tide start to rise, what self-checks did you put in place of?
It took a long time. I think all of it is a practice.
Yeah.
And it is like habit stacking. We want to do all the things, but really it's like, what can I really do and get locked in on that and then build on that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if at that time early on I had a lot of home practices, but like I would go to therapy, especially when I was in something big or like really feeling a traumatic thing, like when I had stuff coming up from sexual abuse as a child, like that was extremely painful. And I was in her chair every week.
Yeah.
But I would go to yoga regularly and I didn't really understand what was happening there. But I knew I felt very different than when I got on the mat and when I left the mat, and I couldn't really explain it.
It does have a little weird. I've not done a lot of yoga. I have had the privilege to have done yoga with you, which was phenomenal, by the way. But I've never done a lot of yoga, and I always thought, you always see yoga as just stretching, makes you more flexible, and but there's a lot more to it.
So much. The power of the practice is connecting to the breath, like mindfully connecting to the breath. And that was something that I didn't know how to do. I'd never heard anything like that. So I just remember like after every class, like what just happened back there? But I just felt so different. And this like hyper electrocution I talked about earlier on with my nervous system, I felt like the practice of yoga and the breath, connecting deeply like that and mindfully, like was this hot wax on my nerves. And they just felt so coated and soft, and it was just healing my nervous system.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So when did, and I have a whole list of questions here, which is fantastic, but when did the practice of self-healing become not just a practice of helping you, but almost takes over your life and becomes who you are? You know, it's almost like saying to somebody, well, you know, I had a trauma as a kid, so I went to see a therapist, and after 2 years of therapy, I'm fixed, and now I'm a therapist. Because, you know, like that's literally what it did for you. You went to see somebody to get help, and it completely, and you absorbed every aspect of that into your life. And now this is part of your life.
Yeah.
With all of the healing and the breath work and the yoga you do. So when did that transition happen from being help to being a lifestyle?
Probably 2 years later. So 2 years later, I decided to get certified to become a yoga instructor. And then it was just kind of slowly one certification after the next and building on that. So like sound healing, and then Reiki, and then another form of energy work. And I was motivated by love and my own experience. And it's like, I have done these things and I know these things work. And so are you willing to try something that could be foreign or unfamiliar or uncomfortable or whatever? So I started doing, I think in 2019, so probably 4 years later, I started with my friend, and we started doing like live events and retreats for women. And we just felt so changed by the things that we were experiencing. We're like, everybody needs this. The whole world needs this. And so we just created these opportunities where we can to share what we had learned and let other women experience or experiment for themselves these beautiful forms of empowerment.
So I know this. I would, first off, I don't intend this to be a mean question, but it's definitely something I want to talk with you, for instance, because you've been doing this so long and you've had such transformations from it. Up until a year ago, I'd never really heard of breathwork. I hadn't. And with We Are the They, we've done several breathwork sessions, and I'm a believer in breathwork. I've had some beautiful visions in breathwork and fixed a lot of healing through that. It seems to be, and maybe it's one of those things. I never knew about it beforehand. So if I'd have seen it, I wouldn't have recognized it. It's like when somebody says, don't think of a yellow car, and then all you see are yellow cars, right? So now I've done breathwork a couple of times. I seem to see more and more and more people doing breathwork and being breathwork practitioners. Now, again, it could be that I've never noticed them up till recently, and they've always been there, or maybe this is now a phase or a fad where everybody's getting into breathwork. And I seriously don't want to dissolve what you do, because I've seen what you do and the way you do it, and it's beautiful. Do you feel, as this is your life, this is who you are, and it's part of your core and your energy, that it's starting to get a little commercialized, streamlined? You know, maybe people do one breathwork session and all of a sudden they want to go get certified and do breathwork too. Are you seeing that? Or is that just my perception because I'm open to it now? I'm seeing it more and more.
Right. I don't know. I would say I definitely think it's very trending right now.
Yeah.
And so is yoga. But I think the reason it's trending really is because people are getting immediate results. Like immediate. And so it's like there's something to this. You experience this beautiful change within yourself. And then it's like, well, I want to learn how to do this. I want to learn how to help other people, you know?
That's fair.
Maybe that's not the case for everybody, but I think there's instant results. So it's like, well, there's the proof in the pudding, you know?
No, and I think that you have a really valuable, you're absolutely right with that. Like if something works, why not do it again? Why not do it again? And I feel like when people who have such trauma get help and get fixed and get on the right path, then it's a case of, I want to replicate this and give it to somebody else. I don't want to keep this power.
I think it's also, people are wanting to more and more find their soul's purpose. You know, like, why am I here? What am I doing? You know, and I think there's multiple reasons that we're here, not just one. So I think that's part of it too. Like, I do feel like, I mean, this feels true to me, that we are here for our own evolving, but also really to be in service to humanity. Like, what can I do to help my planet, you know, and the people on my planet? And so I think it comes from that as well.
I think there's also a swing and a trend too, and maybe this is because of the last 3 to 4 years with what's gone on in society with COVID and stuff like that. I think people are leaning into more holistic approaches than Western medicine.
Definitely.
Especially post-COVID, where everybody was told to get a vaccine, and if you weren't, you were terrible. And, you know, if you didn't get a vaccine, you were the super spreader and all this shit that the media came out with, I think people took a look at that 2-year window of the pandemic and were like, we got to get better. We can't just rely on mass pharmaceutical drugs to be pumped in. Like, what can we be doing on a daily that doesn't mean putting a substance in our body that just uses the natural homeopathic things and tools we already have? And I think that's been a huge thing too. You know, people were stuck in their homes for over a year. They don't want to take the drugs. They don't want to go here, there, and everywhere. And so more and more people are like, okay, how can I be better spiritually, emotionally, physically, without having to rely on supplements?
Yeah.
You know, and you're right. It's an instant release. You know, you do a 1-hour breathwork session and you can unpack decades of shit in 1 hour.
So much. And I really feel like because so much of this is happening, like there's a global awakening, it's really speeding up the rate of healing. So like what has taken me 8 years to do, people are doing in 2 now with everything available to them, with plant medicine. Like I firmly believe in that.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like part of me is like, well, man, you guys are doing this so fast, but I love it.
We always feel robbed too. It's like, well, shit.
This took me a really long time.
Why didn't this happen years ago? Why couldn't I have done this in my 20s? Is there parts of your healing that are still not fully healed that you're working on?
Well, I don't think we're ever like fully healed. I don't feel like we're ever like, I'm arrived.
So much with the past.
Yeah, but I mean, I can look back and I can talk about those experiences. Like I couldn't talk about those with even like crying, you know, I would just like, oh, it was so painful. And now it just feels more neutral, you know, like it's not as emotionally or energetically charged. It's like, well, this happened to me. And
yeah. So we touched on the kids, 4 amazing kids. Your boys are absolute gents, true gentlemen, 20 and 18 years old. They've left home recently.
They have.
How is Mama dealing with?
They come around a lot.
Of course
so it doesn't
do.
feel
laundry and dinner.
Food. They raid our fridge.
Of course they will.
Yeah. So that feels good.
And it's over. And the parents are like, oh, well, the boys are leaving home. Like, you realize you'll probably see more of them.
Yeah. You just never know. I don't know. So now it just feels like they're choosing. They don't have to come home. They're choosing to come and visit. So that feels
that you've created such an amazing energy in your house that they're choosing to be home, hanging out with you guys and out partying and doing all the other things and stuff.
They're losing their ass on their rent because they're never there.
It's like, guys, why don't you just move back?
Seriously.
Just move back.
Seriously.
Give me your rent money and just move back. Mom will take care of you.
But it feels good.
So you got 4 beautiful kids. The boys, Dre and crew, like I said, absolute gentlemen. Special Ma.
Marley.
I freaking love that girl. She is so beautiful.
She's special.
She is in every single way, and she's just magnificent. You know, we talked about Ma on the podcast with Josh, and she's just such a phenomenal character. For those who haven't listened to Josh's podcast, you both have, she's 14, 15?
She's 15.
Okay, she's 15. She has special needs.
She does.
Remind me what it is, because it's in my other notebook.
So she has a genetic disorder called CHD2.
Okay, CHD2. I didn't remember that. But she's a ball of energy. This girl can tell you she loves you 1 minute and tell you to fuck off in the next
100%.
breath. And it's both done with love.
Very true.
And this is why we love Ma.
Oh.
But obviously she has gone through her ups and downs, and therefore so have you. You're very open on social media about the struggles, whether it's just getting her up and onto the bus in the morning, whether it's her telling the server at the restaurant to go fuck himself, and all she wanted was a soda. You know what I mean? Josh loves it. He's like, yeah, fucking, you tell him, Ma. And I can see Mama Karissa over there's like, no, we don't tell people to F off, sweetheart, until they brought the food. But that's who she is.
Yeah.
How has post-healing Karissa and the work that you do and the energy that you have helped with coping with Ma?
Well, I would say I held the belief for a very long time, because I was a victim as a child, that everything was always happening to me. And so Marley, her situation was happening to me. It was this very hard thing. It felt very unfair. It felt very unjust. We didn't have a diagnosis for her until she was 14. So I thought that I could fix her, that I could change her. That's why she was sent to me, because I was going to do all this work to make her neurotypical. And but now doing my own work, I can see that Marley happened for me and that she's a gift. And I didn't need to change her. I just needed to change myself. She was a mirror of what I was feeling inside. Like, so she has been the hardest thing of my whole life, but the most beautiful thing also. She has helped me switch my lens very, very much.
That. She has that power. She really has that power to make you just stop and slow down and think.
Well, and you think, like, why did this happen to me? And like, what did I do to, but it's like, that is a very selfish thing to say, I think. Like, do we think we just come to earth and we're just exempt from any hard things and that other people experience hard things? And like, while it's still a gift and I'm very, very grateful, like it's really hard. It's really hard. And grieving like the life you thought you would have, to embrace the life you do have and seeing the beauty in that, and grieving that like she will probably be with us forever. She won't go on to have her own family or whatever, like we attach so much to outcomes and outcomes that need to be for us to be okay. So this was this thing, like I need it to be this way so I can be okay. And for 10 years, I was not okay with it. And now I am.
Did you feel, because, with individuals like Marley who struggle to communicate, they can, but they just don't communicate as often. Did you feel that Marley was picking up on your energy and 100%. Replicating it?
100%.
So when you were down, she was down.
Yes.
When you were up, she was up.
Yes. And I even had a therapist say, like, Karissa, you're feeding off each other, but you're the adult. So if you can be more calm and peaceful and centered, then so will she. But if you're overwhelmed and anxious and nervous, so is she. So it's.
And did you see that
definitely
symbiote?
Definitely.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. And when I started doing my own work, granted, so she's 15 years old, but the chromosome that her genetic disorder affects, it's a gene mutation, is all neurological. So she's 15, probably with like a 7-year-old mentality. But what was I going to say about that?
Now, will her mentality stay at that age, or will her mentality always be X amount of years behind her?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe a little bit. This is such a rare disorder and there's not much information about it. Not a lot of people that I know that have it that I can talk to, and be like, what does this look like on a 20-year-old? But I can't imagine it being too much different than it is now. But I lost my thought with that.
Well, I think, it's beautiful that you look at Marley being a gift, because she is. Personally, whenever I've been around her, whether it's at your house or up here in Utah, she just makes me stop, because everything is so, like with other kids, it's need, want, do this, bounce from this, bounce to that. Like it's very go, right? Whereas Marley just sits and she watches and she absorbs, and you can see her just dialed in to watching other people, to watching other kids, or just, she's always present without being physically present. Right? Like she's in your conversation being sat on the other side of the room.
Yeah, she's an observer.
Because she's listening to the conversation, but she's not in it. And I think that's so beautiful. And so whenever I'm around her, I always feel like I slow down and just
definitely
smell the roses a little bit. Like, what would Marley do? Just sit and listen. Right? But she's obviously hilariously funny too, and she's just comes out with all of her own creations, and she's an absolute doll. But listening to you say that she's a gift, I don't think I know, quite honestly, I don't think I know of any other parents that could deal with Marley the way you and Josh have. So maybe she is a gift to you because she's helped you heal.
Definitely.
But also the universe looked down and went, I don't think anybody else could handle these apart from the Sherwoods.
I mean, I I think we're given what we can handle, but there's also a lot of choice in that. And I can see just how much we make everything about ourselves when we aren't able to change that lens and we haven't done a lot of our healing work. And so I feel for so many parents in that way because, it's hard. It's very, very hard.
Do you use, obviously you have Presley too, absolute little tiny dancer, full of energy, just, all the things. She's a little mini you. She looks like you. She acts like you. Dances like you. Does all the things. She's a 2.0 though. She's a little 2.0. She's a little Karissa 2.0.
For sure, better.
What things do you use with the kids now when they're having a tough day, or Marley's having a tough day, or Presley, or even the boys? What do you lean into and use with them, and tools that you use with them to either bring them down, calm them out, or raise them up?
Just because I am in this space doesn't mean my family is in this space.
Okay.
Meaning they don't all have a holding place for it, and I don't impose my thoughts, feelings, and beliefs on them because it has worked for me. So they see me do these things. They kids are like professional energy readers. They are watching all the time, observing to see if our words and our actions match.
Up, yeah.
And then they are choosing within themselves, consciously or unconsciously, like, that thing works or that thing does not work. So I think over time, my kids have seen, like, without me saying, this works, do this. Like, this works. Whatever mom is doing works. So I let everything be their idea and I don't impose. Like, I'll say sometimes, like, can you take a few deep breaths? Or Presley is very, I would say she's the most resistant. She's very Joshua in the sense that she's very logical. So sometimes she'll just like roll her eyes and be like, that doesn't even make sense. What does that even mean? Or, or like, the kids lose something. I'm like, well, did you ask your angels where they are? Go ask your angels. And they're like, oh, it doesn't work for me. I'm like, yeah, it does. I can find anything that they lose. Anything. Yeah, because I just seriously like connect to their like spirit team and I'm like, okay, show me where it is. Where's the last place? I find it every time. So they'll always call me or text me. So things like that, but I let them be the driver on that.
Call you when she loses her car keys. Like, Karissa,
seriously,
can you dial in
it works. Somebody knows where they are. Let's just ask them, Why are we not using that? Higher intelligence.
But then I could also see your kids be like, well, I asked my spirit team to do my
they'll
homework
say like,
and they didn't.
Didn't work for me, But even like Reiki, when they get injured or something like that, like I'll say like, do you want me to? I won't just do it. I feel like there needs to be choice in that, even though they're just kids.
Have they leaned into and asked stuff like breath work and stuff like that?
Crew especially is the most awakened 18-year-old I know, and he's just eating all these things up. So we have conversations all the time about things or deep thoughts. He'll ask me questions or he'll bring friends over without telling me and just say, hey, tell them about this. Or like, I told them what you do. They want to see what you do. And I'm like, what am I even do? What are you even talking about? So
come out like it's with fireballs and stuff like this. Like, is this what you want?
So even though like Presley can be resistant, I think like in the mother-daughter relationship, the daughter especially goes through these seasons on and off of like finding herself independent of mom.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can be the best of friends. And then sometimes it's just this push because she wants to do opposite of everything you're doing just to see who she is.
Yeah.
But even when she is resistant to things, she'll make comments like when she was going to public school, she'd say like, yeah, my music teacher, he is just angry every day. He really needs to do some meditation with you. So she acknowledges that there's something in it.
There.
She does. She does. She's just a little more,
I love
I'll
that.
see. If I can't see it, I don't believe it, That's fine.
I was kind of like that way. First time doing breath work, I'm like, seriously, we're all going to lay on a mat like sardines. I'm going to breathe like an idiot, have an oxygen orgasm in front of 50 dudes. Like, what is going on here? And then I dropped into it and like, there's literally people on the other side of the room, like having orgasms, like breath and noise. And I'm trying to drop in like, what is like, do I keep rhythm with them? Do I keep rhythm with him, me?
Yeah.
It's a lot. But once it happens, poof, it's game changing.
So I think like all these things are available to them and they have like an open ear. They're open. They are more open than they've ever been and they pick and choose as feels good to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is fine with me.
And I love the fact that your family and Josh as well, who again is such an amazing husband, supportive character, like your home is not only the Sherwood's home, but it's also your place of rest, relaxation,
Definitely.
work, because you have
Yeah.
your own meditation room and
Yeah.
you do the beautiful experiences in your backyard, the immersion experiences. So it's almost like the family acknowledge what you do, but then they also let you do it in the space that's yours.
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen your boys there. They
Yeah.
go and, you know, hide out in the back room and do their own thing, and Ma goes and hides herself off,
Yeah.
and you just turn into this.
It's a special place. Crew has said that it's a sanctuary. And
Oh,
it really
is.
does feel true. And even when like people come to these immersion experiences and they come through the backyard, there's just this like reverence when they come in. Like they can just feel that there's, I don't know, something different there.
Yeah. What's down the road for Karissa with regards to healing and spirits and energy? What's down the turnpike?
Well, I think as we are really trying to find our soul's purpose, I think it evolves over time. And so I can see how a lot of these things that I have learned and experienced have brought me to this place where I am now. And so now I have this gift of mediumship that's come online and being clairvoyant. And I have decided to start working with people one-on-one, doing readings online or in person.
Really?
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
Yeah.
Okay, now you I'll be your first client. What's this look like?
Really, I call it mostly like a soul guidance reading. And
Okay.
it's your soul guides the reading. So your soul like tells me the thing that you need most. So maybe it's like a message from a loved one or helping you connect with a loved one that has passed. Or maybe it's, like one time I sat with a woman and she's like, I don't even know why I'm here, but I know I'm supposed to be here. And so I just sat with her and I'm like, your lungs are like full to the top with grief. Do you have any grief that you haven't processed? And she's like, yeah, like 40 years worth. And I said, like, you have to be on like asthma medication, like you have to have asthma or bronchitis or something like that. Yes, I have severe asthma. I'm on all the medications, the highest steroids. And so because she was able to see or understand, change her lens on like why she was experiencing this physical ailment, she since like 2 months later is off all of her medication.
Wow.
All of her medication. I really believe that something doesn't come from nothing.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why we get these things. So things like that, it's probably something she didn't have awareness to, but I'm like, oh yeah, these lungs right here, they are full to the top, full to the top.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been like, it's mind blowing.
Okay,
it is
sign me up.
mind blowing
Sign me up.
because
I'm
it's
in.
like, there's no way I can know these things. Like I can't pull this information out of my ass. There is a higher power that I am connecting to give messages. It's really beautiful.
Wow. Okay. I'm in.
Yeah.
Totally in. So I have had, I would say I believe in ghosts. I believe in life after death. I believe in ghosts, right? I think most boys do because we always want to be ghost hunters and ghostbusters and stuff. But I also lean on the side of, okay, are you really talking to dead people or are you just kind of, feeling something? And so I had a client. This was years ago and I was an asshole, so I apologize. There was years ago, I was serving a client of mine looking for a house and she was a medium.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, right? Worst experience of my life, Karissa.
Ooh.
Because she would walk through the front door and be like, no, this isn't the house. The spirits are telling me this isn't my house. I'm like, okay, what is it about the house that the spirits don't like? Well, there's mold in the walls. We can't see it, but this isn't the house for us. Righto. Off to the next one. We must have gone through 30 homes over like 5 days. And the husband is just getting drained. Like I can see him just like, for the love of God, pick a house, right? So literally on day 5, she's doing the same thing again. Nope, this isn't the house for us. The spirits are telling me this isn't the house. And I snapped. And I said, okay, can you tap into the spirits and get which house and which address is a good house? And let's just go there.
Good question.
Can we just stop the bullshit and go right to the one you're meant to buy?
Yeah.
And she kind of half looked at me and she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to keep doing this. We're fine. And the husband looked at me as if I was a gold medalist, like a champion. It's like, finally, somebody stood up to my wife and told her what the deal is. But then she hit me with, you have a guardian angel. And I'm like, no, not really. And she's like, oh yeah. She goes, you have a guardian angel. They've protected and watched over you your entire life. And I was like, okay, well, sure. She told me that my mom, who's nearly 80, by the way, in her early 20s had a friend whose name began with L that died. And that woman is now watching over me. So right there and there, I called I called my mom in England. I was like midnight over there. I was like, Mom, what's the deal? So it turns out my mom at the age of 20 lived next door to a couple who had a 19-year-old daughter whose name was Elle that died in a car crash.
Wow.
And was best friends with my mom when they were 19 and 20.
Wow.
And my mom was like, oh yeah, that's Linda. She lived next door. And I looked at the woman, I was like, Linda? She's like, uh-huh. I'm like, okay, well, Linda's here, Mom, and she's watching over me. And Mom's like, what the f-? I said, the crazy lady says that?
Yeah.
But sure as shit, Linda was apparently watching over me. And this woman was like, yeah, you've been to war. She was there with you. I was like, okay. Thanks, Linda.
So I think that's really beautiful.
So if we have a meeting and you meet Linda, she's been around.
I also feel like in things like that, I have been advised and counseled as I have learned and trained, and but that like we still need to ask someone's permission to share something.
Yeah.
It would be really good to say like, would you be open to hearing something that I'm picking up for you?
Yeah.
And then you get to choose without just like slamming them with this information,
Yeah.
Also this I want to normalize the paranormal. And so I think, there's the cards and the pendulum and all those things. And I think they're all tools that you can
Ouija
use, but also I don't think we need them. And I think people get really weirded out by those things, but it's like, this thing is so normal, actually, even though we can't see this. I want to normalize it.
We're all energy.
Yeah.
That's
really.
And quite, I'm an ex-engineer. I get energy. I'm only now starting to understand humans as energy, and that, the energy I put off can affect your energy and blah, 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 right? And not just attitude, but actual energy. But you think about it, we have internet on our phones, internet on our laptops connected wirelessly. Wirelessly, it's because of energy, waveforms and all this sort of stuff that we're picking up. So why can't humans do the same thing?
Exactly. I mean, that actually is science.
It's the way it works.
It is.
And some people are like, can't get my head around it. And I was there for a long time.
Yeah.
You have to be.
It's really hard to believe. It really is. But then it's like, it also makes a lot of sense.
Oh, it does. It absolutely does. And why I feel this way and why the kids are feeling this way and Andrea's feeling this way, it's all because of energy in the house and the home. And I think that's a testament to why the boys come back home. The energy in your house is phenomenal.
Yeah. You
have a very, very loving home and a very positive energy home, created by you, Josh, and the kids. And so I think that's the reason why they come back. And I love the fact that you're doing it with less, making the paranormal normal.
Yeah. And I don't talk about it very much. Like I really don't. If someone asks me, I will. But I'm usually a little mindful of the crowd, of the audience, and I know not everyone has a holding space for that. And I don't need you to know or anybody to know what I do that. If that calls to you or speaks to you, then we can talk about it,
I need you to meet Linda.
Like Crew, he came home one day with 5 friends I had never met before. He's like, Mom, I told him what you do. Like, they want a reading. I'm like, what? Like, you guys, like right now?
Did you do it?
Yeah, I totally did.
Did they do it?
I totally did right then. Yes. And they were just like, mind blown, but they were open. Some were a little more scared than others. And so I said, like, you don't have to do this. Like, you can choose to do this.
So what impact do you think that doing work like that on an 18-year-old, prior to the temptations of women and society and all the noise of life, right? How can you impact an 18-year-old by doing breath work or paranormal work? How can that set them up? How can it be a benefit to an 18-year-old? Because it has to be. So how can we do that more? And how do we get that out to more teens?
I think teens are more open and receptive than they've ever been. I feel like they have a holding place for this stuff more than they ever have. I think they are more
Where's
evolved.
That come from?
I really feel like the next generations that come are they come like ready quicker than we were. But I think there's an empowerment that comes from feeling into a power greater than you. knowing that there's a power greater than you, and just knowing that you are loved and cared for by energy that you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And that these loved ones that were on earth with you, like still very much want to be with you. And they want you to know that they know what you're doing and they want to protect you and they want to take care of you. So that really brings this beautiful feeling like of this deep love and value. Like I have value that these energies I can't see still want to be with me and they care about what I'm doing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, it's first of all, credit to crew for bringing home 5 guys at 18 years old. It's like, hey, want to go for a beer? No, you want to come get, do you want to come and get?
And he'll bring them, like if I have like the immersive stuff, he's invited friends and some friends eat it up and some are like, ooh, I don't know. And that's fine, you know? But he just, I don't know. He's like my biggest cheerleader.
Good
And
for him.
It's really interesting.
Good for him.
It's
Well,
beautiful.
he's doing what you do.
Yeah,
He's changing people's lives through you.
he is.
That's good for him.
I told him really early on without asking him when he was a teenager. I'm like, you know, you're a healer, right? And he was like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. You know, and I'm like, it's going to take you some time for you to really lean into that, but you are.
We're waiting for you.
Yeah. But like now I said to him, I'm like, can you see like what you're doing? Like you're already stepping into this role. A healer has many different forms, many different, you know, we're all figuring out our own medicine, but you like just helping open your peers' eyes to things they may not have considered because they see it working on you. They see the change in you. Like that's medicine.
Hell yeah. Good for, I fully support that.
Yeah.
Good for him and hope he keeps doing that.
Yeah.
Like bringing more friends home and because it's such a troubling time for, I think for kids in their 20s or cruise age with what's going on in the world, in media, with
Definitely. That's social media.
It's horrible. It's just such a poisonous place.
It is.
Whether you use social media for good, for bad, for indifferent, it is poisonous. We can't control what we see. We can only control what we put out there. So even if you're putting out rainbows and unicorns every day, there's people out there putting, you know, evil. And it just, you get absorbed into it and you get shamed by it. You get overwhelmed by it. You get anxious by it. So if crew can keep bringing a group of kids home once every 2 weeks, it's like, hey, my mom's quirky. You're going to love her.
Yeah.
Come and meet
Yeah.
her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So really, really good for him.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I definitely want to tap into the paranormal.
Okay.
You got to meet Linda.
Let's do it.
Apparently she's there somewhere. Hopefully she hopefully she put a robe on this morning.
I'm
She's not just
sure
wandering around up there in all her get up. As we start to wrap up, as the mother and the wife and the beautiful friend you are to all of us, what is a great piece of advice for parents that may have a child who has special needs or may have kids that are leaving home? From your perspective in the healing space, in the energy space, what's a great piece of advice you can give to other parents? Baby steps.
I would say to really stop focusing on everything outside of you, stop focusing on other people and use that energy to you and really start working on your internal space because the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship that you have. And if you are an insecure human walking around this world, you're very insecure in your relationships. And it is so empowering. It is so empowering to really be able to connect deeply with yourself and feel the truth of who you really are. We identify with this external frame so much, but when we can feel beyond that, like I'm so much more than my skin color or my size or my hair or whatever, there's really something deeper in there. It's so empowering. I would also say that we are more powerful than we have ever been led to believe. And so all of these tools, all these things that I've done over the years, every single thing has been a reclamation of power. And I think the thing that makes me a really powerful healer, which I have kind of mixed feelings about even saying that word anyway, healer, is the amount that I am able to embody that healing energy within myself.
I love that. Why don't you use the term healer? What do you prefer to use?
I don't know. I just have like, I don't know.
Does it make you feel uncomfortable saying healer?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
You need to get past that.
I don't know. I guess I just have mixed feelings on it because it's like I'm not doing all the work. Like it's like this person in front of me has to be in choice as well. Like if you don't want to be healed,
So
if you don't want to move.
energy facilitator.
I guess. I mean, I am a healer, but it's not like I just put my hands on you and then you're just healed. You know what I mean? Like I facilitate healing that you choose to access. That's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. You're right. It's not all about you.
No.
It's not like you're not placing a hand on them and, blindness be gone. Like they've got to do the work.
Yes.
You're just giving them the tools to.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll think of a cool term.
Yeah.
The energy creator.
I think it's the space of like, I don't know.
I love it.
I'll figure it
Well, Karissa, it has been beautiful having you on.
Thank you. Thank you.
It really has. You mean the absolute world to Andrea and I. Both you, Josh, and the family. We love the fact you're down in Arizona so we can see you more often. We need to do better at that.
Definitely.
But we just love being around you. You are beautiful in all that you do. The work that you do, I know Andrea's been to many of your events up in Phoenix.
She has. She's a great supporter.
And it's not, here's the thing, it's not just support because Carissa's doing it, I'm going to support her. It's actually Carissa's doing this again. I want to go to do the next level.
Which I have had a conversation with her about it because I said, you don't need to come every time. Like you don't need to do this for me. I don't want anyone to come and do this for me. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
But if this benefits you and it speaks to you, I would love to have you come.
100% does.
Yeah.
Like she calls me on every drive home after she's been up there talking about her breakthroughs and whatnot. And and the stories and the storm that was coming, which came.
Yeah, that's wild.
Right. So it's weird when she tells me these things. I'm like, okay, so we've got a storm coming and such
Andrea
happening.
Andrea is very tapped in. She's very connected.
Yeah. And then sure as shit, down the road came the storm. Like, okay, can you give me the lottery numbers next? That'll be great.
Yeah.
But we love you. We adore you. And I'm just really, really grateful that you took the time out of the trip to come on the podcast.
Same. Thank you
You're
so
very
much.
welcome. Thank you for listening to the Bear Den podcast. Please click subscribe and get the updates for our new episodes. And if you feel the need to reach out, you can reach me on Instagram @TheBritBear.